Your Partner in Success Radio is a free business podcast with host Denise Griffiths. It's all about great stories, conversation, and context to help you move your business and life forward with actionable tips and advice from her guest experts. To listen and subscribe, just find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you consume your podcasts.
Good morning and welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I am your host, Denise Griffiths, and this podcast is ranked in the top 2% of the most popular podcasts in the world. And it's all because of my truly incredible guests. I am honored and blessed to share time with people who are at the top of their game, and they show up here willing to help you get to where you want to be in life and in business. So good morning, Michelle. Welcome to Your Partner in Success Radio. I need to tell people a bit about you, but you know what? I'd almost rather you did it because you've got this amazing story.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here this morning as well. I am the CEO of Sum of All Numbers. We started off as a purely bookkeeping company back in 2007 and realized right away, especially over COVID, that the knowledge that we had from doing people's books was much greater than just where do transactions go. And at that point, we launched into the business strategic coaching in helping people understand their numbers and what historically they mean, and also what that means for projecting the future and forecasting and really increasing profitability and knowing what things can happen next for their business.
Important these days. And by the way, for our audience, I'm speaking with Michelle Scribner. I just skipped over that entirely. So I am so sorry. It's one of those mornings and I'm excited to talk with you, Michelle. So I managed to get in my own way. But before we get started, can you tell us a bit about you and how you show up in the world? Because your story to me is fascinating.
Yes, I'd love to do that. So first and foremost, I'm a mother of 5 kids, and I have always been very service-minded. And when I graduated from college, my best friend's mother said, "Business, that is such a selfish major." Now, she was a nurse and her daughter was a veterinarian and her other daughter was a physical therapist. And so from her perspective, business looked like such a selfish, money-making, capitalistic career. And that hit me hard at the age of 22. And I decided right then that the gifts and skills and abilities that I had, that I was going to use to help other people. And I feel so blessed and honored that every day I get to show up and just help other business owners who feel alone at the top, who have nobody to talk to about the struggles that are going on in their business or the financial decisions they need to make. Because as a business owner, sometimes you can talk with your spouse. Sometimes that's not an area that a spouse understands. You definitely can't always talk to your employees about those pieces. And as business owners, we really, really want our colleagues to just only know the good things that happen in our business. So I find myself in this unique place where I have been able to be that trusted advisor for other entrepreneurial business owners, for them to work through the issues that they're faced with, because as a business owner, there is always something to work on in your business. And as soon as everything is great, then it's like, all right, what else can we improve? It doesn't mean that something's going wrong. It just means there's always something to make better and to plan for. So it has been an amazing journey for me to be able to land in this place where every day is an act of service for those that I work with.
It sounds like you got shoved into it. When you said what she said, I just quit breathing. I went, what? She's a nurse. Her daughter's a veterinarian. They're working for businesses.
But they didn't view it as that. And
interesting.
But I think that is oftentimes just that it is viewed upon as capitalistic, as a negative thing, or whatever else might come into people's opinions and perceptions. And so, but I think those of us that work in businesses, when you've got what I'm going to call a servant's heart, then regardless of what you do, you can make somebody else's life better and by the products and the services that you provide. And if nothing else, you can provide that opportunity for people that work underneath you.
So I've got all kinds of questions for you. That's why I got ahead of myself. But you mentioned, I think in our pre-interview, something about, let me wrote it down here. What is a pumpkin plan strategist? I think I know because I went and looked it up.
Sure.
So tell us what a pumpkin plan strategist is and how this methodology can help businesses identify their most valuable clients or products. I'm thinking that with this methodology, you're able to kind of weed out the ones that are just taking too much time, too much energy, and they're not helping you make money.
Yep.
Am I wrong or am I close?
No, you are right on. So
Okay.
if we look at businesses in general, there are sound business principles that have existed for decades and centuries. A sound business principle is don't spend more than you make. A simple principle like that. Only to hire the top people, only work with people you like, only, all of those things. And as I've looked and studied over my career, then every business book that I read is somebody sharing those experiences of how they applied that and rose to the top. So Mike Michalowicz wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan, and it was based upon how do you grow those giant pumpkins. The funny thing is, this is only an American thing. People in other parts of the world don't know what giant pumpkins are, but we sure do here. Those thousand pound giant things that are amazing. And the way he applied these business,
you can't go to a state fair without finding one of those things.
And it's my favorite thing was putting my small children in front of that to show how big they truly were.
Right.
So Mike has an amazing ability to tell fascinating stories to apply these sound business principles into running a business. And the concept is, how do you grow your business so that it is this giant, beautiful thing? Giant is not the key word. It's the beautiful thing where we just are able to thrive and create something that is unique instead of just the norm, like normal pumpkins. And he bases that on the 3 business principles. The first is attract your top clients. Do you know who your top clients are? And that's what you gave reference to. Are you working with the people, your clients, that truly bring you joy and do not take more out of you than what you have set up to do? And if you look at any marketing company, that's their whole job, is to help you identify who your top clients are, what perhaps geography, age bracket, characteristics, personalities, all of those things. The second part, there's again 3 pieces to the pumpkin plan. The second is to have a unique offering. So as business owners, if we can set ourselves apart from our competition in some way, then we are not limited by price and somebody comparing us with somebody else just based upon price, because what we've got is truly unique. And the third portion of the pumpkin plan is systematizing your business so that regardless of if you're the one doing the work or Joe or Susie or Rebecca or whomever else, it's the systems that are running the business and the people are running the systems. So when those 3 elements are dialed in to the highest level, you are able to, in essence, produce that giant pumpkin. So we view that as strategic business planning. Do you know those 3 elements? How do your finances figure into that, because there's always a story that goes back into your financial statements. And a lot of the times you can see that based upon those 3 business principles, and then make those changes that are necessary so that your business can just thrive in that space. And then again, make that giant pumpkin. So after he wrote that book, then he realized people need help. You can read it, you can implement it yourself, but there is a group of us that have become certified in understanding those 3 elements. And then we've got, through the certification, a myriad of tools that have been designed by Mike Michalowicz and his partner, Donna Lyons, on this in order to really truly help businesses project themselves forward. So that is when I say that I'm a pumpkin plans certified, then that's kind of how that falls in.
Because I heard you say that and it showed up in my show notes and I went, but what is it?
Exactly.
So I had to go find out. I'm an intensely curious person and I didn't want to chat with you without having at least some rudimentary knowledge of what it was. But when you start to explain it, it makes perfect sense. Listen, I've had to weed some people out of my practice most recently, because I thought I was going to have to drive to California and hit her with my car. Don't want to do that. So,
You
yeah,
know,
there's some
it's
people you just should not work with.
it is not, it's not a win-win situation. It's not a win for them, and it's not a win for you as a business either. And I used to come from a place of, oh, we can provide, we can help anybody. And I've wisdom has set in, and it's like, no, there are some that it's just not going to be a good fit. And sometimes it's because the values don't align. You should have core values as a business that kind of fall right in line with the core values you have as a business owner. And we've all had people that we work with that perhaps violate those values. And then that is not an enjoyable place to work. Being in the financial arena, I'm going to say that there are bookkeepers and CPAs out there that if you would like to bamboozle the IRS, then you can find a way. And, we see those people on the news. And so, to whenever we as a company have someone that starts to go in that shady area, or have a CPA that we work with that asks us to, no, please go put this over here and such, then it's like, that's a value violation for us. And it's sometimes like, I don't think we're the right fit for you. I don't have to be negative towards them and call them out on what they're doing. I can just simply say, this just really isn't a good fit for both of us. And I think you'll be served better by somebody else. That's our way of weeding out some of those clients.
Yeah, I'm a web developer by trade, and look, I'll build WordPress websites while I'm standing over the stove making a gumbo. I can see them in my head. It's all built. By the time I get back to my desk, all I have to do is write it down. But I have learned, in the very beginning, when you're building your portfolio and you're building your business, you take anybody who knocks on the door, right? Don't
Yes,
do it. Don't
yes.
do it. It will come around and bite you right in the fanny quicker than you think it might. So be
That
careful who you accept as a client.
Yep, that's, again, when I say it kind of comes back to the numbers. So we as business owners just say any money is good money. But when you look at it in the sense of the pumpkin plan or sound business principles, you can say, okay, if that client distracts you from what you do best, which is your unique offering, then that money isn't good. It's a distraction that perhaps closes doors for the opportunities that you might find if you don't take that client. And then if you look at it as in the pumpkin plan strategy of, okay, any money is good money, but that's not your top client. Sometimes your efficiency goes down. I'm going to say your job satisfaction goes down. And listen, we have enough problems to deal with. We don't need to create and invite problems in. They'll find us. And so those we go through, and I will often tell my team, I'd like you to go through, and we call it a cringe factor. And I just say, here's all of the clients that we have. I'd like you to give me a happy face or a sad face on these. And it's as simple as that, meaning they get an email and they're like, oh, it's this person. I'm happy to reply to them, or I'll get back to them. And then there's those ones where you get an email and you're like, oh, it just sucks the life out of you. So, as the interesting part is, research shows that if you do something simple like that with a cringe factor, and we do it with actual clients, but you can do it with potential clients or just theoretical clients. You go through that. The research shows that you can, by numbers, show that those are less profitable. So for us, we track our time, and those clients with the cringe factor, that is a sad face, they're not, our profitability on them, and it's not about profit, but it's about they take more out of us. They take more of our resources than we would naturally give. And they often push us to do things where we are not the expert in. So it's kind of interesting when I work with clients, business owners, I'll say, let's go through and identify those clients that truly we probably should weed out. And that's where the pumpkin plan comes in with, you need to weed, you need to prune. And so you look at your current group of people that your clients, your people that pay you money, not your employees, and say, who do I need to prune so that I can flourish better?
That is so important, because once you do that pruning, and I have to do it periodically, almost instantly, I'm telling you, nature abhors a vacuum. Almost within minutes, it seems like it's longer than that, but very, very quickly, here comes somebody that was just waiting to get your attention. And they're going to be a great client for you. So prune, seriously, prune. It may hurt your bottom line for a little bit. Prune anyway.
And Denise, when you said that, that's a hard place, especially when cash flow is a pain point, is that if you are struggling as a business, then it feels like at least there's money coming in. But it, more often than not, like you said, there's a vacuum that happens, and all of a sudden you are more available, and those people that you can serve best, they'll find you. That takes a lot of faith, but there is something to be said about that. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's a hard place for business owners to just believe that if I truly keep myself open and not distracted by who is not my top client, then my top clients will come.
And as you said, you've got a unique business, you've got a unique offering. People are looking for you. Just make it easier for them to reach you.
Yes. And it's great that you're in that web place, because getting the word out there and your marketing efforts, whatever that might be, is helpful in that area but when you're clear on who you want, the message you send will resonate with them and they will come running.
So, Michelle, you often say, and I've heard you say this here, there, and yonder, you often say that each business owner is unique, and I just used the word too. Elaborate for us how this uniqueness, I can't even talk today, impacts financial management. Because, listen, I'll be honest with you, everybody I know, including myself, has a major imposter syndrome. I think we don't know how unique we are.
I think sometimes we're worried about being unique as a business owner, and because of all the fear out there of how am I going to attract business if I need to be the same. If I'm a plumber, I need to show I'm as good as the next big guy that is out there, instead of differentiating yourself in some small way, so that you stand out from who your competitor is. So identifying where your business is unique often flows back to where you are unique. And again, another book that Mike Michalowicz wrote is Profit First. And this is all about cash flow. So your sound business principle in Profit First is spend less than you make and save for a rainy day. Those are your principles. And Profit First is about how you apply those sound business principles into your life. The interesting part about Profit First is that it is behavior based. So we would like to think that numbers is all about math and science, but my experience has been that when you can identify your behavior as a business owner and apply that to the way your money flows, you're going to see a correlation, which then affects your business. So I'll give you an example. There are some business owners out there that are scared to death of debt. Scared, so scared that they will not take risks in order to grow their business because the fear of debt is so huge. Now, we all know that in general, debt is not a good thing. And it binds you and puts a cinder block around your ankle and like leads you along. So if you are one of those people where debt scares you, then start siphoning money away, siphoning or setting it aside and become your own loan so that you're borrowing from yourself. In essence, I'm going to just set this aside and there we go. That is my risk. I've set it aside so that I'm going to use that to grow my business in a certain way. Now let's flip it. There are some people that they're not afraid of debt at all. If you're that person, you better put some guardrails around yourself because you're going to find yourself in problem at a future date. So put some parameters around how much you are allowed to borrow or how much you're allowed to put on your credit card so that there is always a way to pay that off. And don't get yourself too far in that it's going to sink you emotionally or your business in the future. That's a behavior element that flows right into your finances. Another one is oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember my mom, she passed away a few years ago, but she'd call and say, okay, I'm going to the casino with my friends. I said, how much are you spending? She said, $20. And she would put $20 in her wallet. And once she lost it, she was done. She did not give herself permission. And she could have spent whatever she wanted, really. But that $20 was her guardrail.
That and the discipline when you recognize your uniqueness and your behaviors around, and it's not just around money, it's just your behaviors in ways. So a lot of business owners are brilliant. They're visionaries. They have got a product or a service that is going to change the world. You know what else they are? They're very distracted by shiny lights and by shiny objects. We call it shiny object syndrome,
We do. I say
right?
it all the time. I'll
We
say it to me. It's Denise, stop right now.
and it's not a bad thing because that is what that's why we have entrepreneurialism flourishing in the United States and why we have all these small businesses and amazing things that happen. So, but if you're that person and you identify that behavior, then what happens is that it's like, oh, I'm going to try this. Oh, I'm going to try that. So often when I'm working with a business owner and we recognize that they've got that, then we say, let's build this in. We're going to build this in. You have a budget of $2,000 a month. Now, if you've got a shiny a shiny object that you're going to go after and it's 10,000, well, guess what? That's your budget for the next 5 months. So nothing else. And we kind of put parameters around it. Now let's take the flip side. others are so entrenched in not expanding themselves that it will be like, all right, what else is available to you? And how are we going to build that in? Because perhaps you as a business owner are not interested in those mind expanding things. But we know that when you've got a team of people and you're constantly encouraging them to think outside the box, then brilliant things happen. And so if your personality is such like, no, that really doesn't distract me. It's like, great, but let's make sure that there's some development, personal development, business development, employee development built in, again, where you're willing to spend money on it if it truly is going to be beneficial for your people, you as an individual, or you as a company. Again, this comes back to the behaviors and then how that flows into the dollars.
Going back to shiny object syndrome, because honestly, I know this about me. I know it about most of my friends and colleagues. We all suffer from it. And honestly, it's because of great copywriting. I blame the copywriting. It's like, ooh, I need to try that. But I have found, and I'm sure you have found this as well, if you go ahead and spend the $10,000 and you don't do anything with it, what's the punishment? What happens?
Yeah, that's the punishment is the
You're
money.
out $10,000.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is when you're talking about putting up guardrails, do you also say, listen, okay, you've got $10,000, you've got 6 months to make this work. Are we going to have a meeting afterwards to see where you are?
Accountability is a great piece of that as well.
Yeah. I
So
guess that's really my question.
it is. And that comes down to helping business owners or ourselves set the goals, or how are we going to apply this after we experience it. I think though that every time that we read a book or we take a class or such, that we're changed in some small way. Our view on the world changes, and sometimes it's even yep, I don't believe any of that stuff, and we're more firm in our convictions. And so oftentimes when because I'm constantly looking at the financials of business owners, then that comes up because typically those shiny objects have a pretty high price tag attached to them because they promise some amazing things. So we typically set the goals around it. What do we want to accomplish from this? And how do we want to move our business forward or ourselves forward in some way? The
Yes, I'm
marketing,
telling you.
yep. I'm going to say that this is an area that I really don't have much expertise in the marketing arena. I've got, just a very basic piece, but I do know how they affect a financial statement. And to be a marketer is to promise someone, hey, I can improve your business and bring you more money. And so business owners often throw their dollars at marketing because they're hoping they're going to get a return. So from my vantage point, I can see the expense, and I expect in 3 months that revenue line to show an increase. And if I don't see that, then not that I have any expertise to go back to the marketer, but I can say to the business owner, we're not seeing that yet. This needs to be dialed in. So when we look at the decisions that we make to spend money, there typically is a time frame in which you should expect to see a return in the revenue that comes in. So marketing is a 3-month piece. Sometimes on the shiny object where it's a business development, it's almost instantly. Sometimes it's 6 months. Sometimes it's even longer than that. So I think that you can look at the money that you spend, and the more experience you've got, then you can say, I expect to see this return in so many weeks, so many months. Same thing with hiring a new employee. For us, it takes 3 months before my employees really are in the big mainstream of productivity. Other businesses you can look at how long does it take for someone to ramp up and really be a full benefit to the business. So again, anytime you spend money, there's some time that is factored in for the time that you should see the return coming back.
And you had mentioned systems, that you have the systems and the people run the systems, but they need to learn them. And if you're a small business, and I did this to myself way early on, I didn't have any systems. I was it. I was the person. I did it all. I've got a computer science degree. Nobody cares about it. I'm a nerd in stilettos. Nobody cares about that either. But I did care that I was exhausted. I was doing everything. And I didn't have time. I told myself that I didn't have time to create any systems. Well, that was a mistake. So get your systems, get
Yeah.
them in play.
This is often, if you look at what you have to be working on first in your business, if you're not attracting clients, that has to be your top piece, because if there is no money coming in or prospects coming in, then your systems they can take the back seat, because systems at that point are not the top priority. They're still important, but having the prospects is critical. And again, I'm talking about when you're a sole person starting your business off. Then the next piece is, if you don't have your cash flow in line, then it's hard sometimes to work on the systems as well. So naturally, we put, as business owners, systems on the back burner. One, because we're the one that's doing it all. Two, because we're worried about bringing in new business. And three, it's because our cash flow. All of those, there's only a certain amount of energy that we have. And even if you work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you still only have a certain amount of energy to expel as a business owner. So what ends up happening, like you mentioned, is that the prospects start coming in, the cash flow is getting to a place there, and it's like, all right, I need to bring in someone to help me. Well, what happens then? I need someone to help me.
And that's what happened to me. I kept saying, oh, geez, oh, geez, oh, geez. Now I have to go back and write down everything I know.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
God, it
And
was horrible.
sometimes you don't even realize what you know. And so we often
I had
find
to follow myself around, Michelle. It was awful. I had to walk around. I had a clipboard. I went to the Dollar Tree and I bought a clipboard and I carried it. If I was washing dishes, that clipboard was next to me because I'd think, oh, I do that, I do that. I had to write it all down. It was horrifying.
it
But
is.
I realized how darn smart I am. So there was that. But
And
still,
that's where you realize your uniqueness. So before your first hire, it's the time for you truly to say, what is it that I want this person to do? Not just, yeah, answer the phones and do this. It's like, let's just talk about answering the phones. There are ways to answer the phone correctly and incorrectly based upon you as the business owner. And so you can hire someone to do that task, but you've already got an expectation in your mind as far as what you expect. And so that part is part of the systems that makes it unique to your business. When you answer the phone, I would like you to have a smile on your face. They're simple for some people. Other people, it might not matter to them to have a smile on their face or not. I would like you to answer the phone with this certain line. If the phone has 4 things ringing at the same time, this is how I would like to have to be done. You have, as a business owner, these expectations you don't even realize you have because you haven't looked at what goes into this system. We're so task driven, but there's more to it than that. So I've got a client that did like you did as well. And she just had a log that she just had, and it was on her computer because that's where she was all day instead of a clipboard. It was on, and she just wrote down everything she did that day and to the minute piece. And there were 45 things on that list, of which I was as exhausted for her when I saw it.
exactly.
But then it allowed her to say, oh my goodness. Then we could say, all right, these things can be delegated, but delegating not the task, but the manner and the system in which to fulfill that task. When you've got that, do you see how that flows into you're unique? You have a unique offering because of that. And we've got to have our system dialed into what that is so that our unique offering becomes something that, regardless of who touches it, it continues. It could be something.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It could be something as simple as communication. I'm in the financial world here. For me, communication is the most important thing for me to give to my clients. So all the way down to the lowest person on the totem pole, and it has nothing to do with their value to the company or their individuality. It's just more of the tasks that they do, but making sure that they have communication again at the lowest level of what somebody might do in my company. It's like you've got to make sure, because communication is what makes us unique, that that element is built into what you do in your tasks. So simply telling somebody that or putting it into a system ensures that all the way up and throughout your whole organization, those things are baked in so that you continue to have that unique offering that is there. And the further you step out as a business owner and delegate more, then it continues to be the business you have always wanted it to be.
The business. You said something about when you pick up that phone, smile. And I started to laugh a little bit because just before I jumped on this podcast with you, I had to call my bank. And I could tell instantly it was not going to go well because of the attitude of the woman who answered the phone. And she, I have this thing, they'll say, well, give us your account number and then, we can tell you whether we'll take you off of voice ID. I don't want to be ID'd by my voice ever for any reason. So, I explained to her, I said, can you take me off of voice ID? And she got real snippy. Well, I need your account number. Can you take me off of voice ID? Well, I can't. And she started getting an attitude. I said, you know what? I think you're having a bad day. So I'm going to call back and speak to someone else. You have a nice day. And I hung up on her.
Wow.
This is my bank doing this. I will say it was a first, but I didn't like it.
And I would dare say that whomever is over that person all the way up to the top, that was not what they envisioned to have happen when they hired her. And so if there's not a system in place, and sometimes that system is, how do you do this? And when it's written down and when it is communicated, you can hold somebody accountable for that. And that's one of the hardest things as business owners, is to hold somebody accountable for an expectation you never communicated. When you've got systems, your expectations are very much communicated.
I'll tell you right now, you can tell, we don't need to see your face or your body language to know if you're smiling, if you're happy, if you're, excited to take care of whatever request this is. We can tell.
Yeah.
And I have low tolerance for it. I mean, I never got rude with her. It's just not what I do. But I did let her know that I wasn't going to continue having her and her attitude around me.
It
I said, you
permeates.
just have a nice day.
Yeah.
Well, I southernned her to death. Yeah, I almost Ellie made, you have a nice day now here. And I just But yeah, I wasn't going to tolerate it.
And it's through every business. Again, where we've all had doctors or nurses, again, that we feel like they care about us, just by the interaction that they have. Going into, if you ever had to have your car repaired, again, same thing. All of those, when you're in a business that deals with people, and most of us are, then you as the business owner know that I've got to make sure that person knows how valuable they are to me, because they're going to give me their money, and that's going to allow me to pay my employees and my rent and my subscriptions and everything else that are part of a business. So when you hire someone to work for you, they usually have not been a business owner. They've only been an employee. And it's hard for an employee to truly grasp the enormity of what it means to run a business. So when you've got a system in place where those expectations have been given to them of this is the way this job description is, what I expect, how this needs to work. This is the standard operating procedures that we follow. And then it goes to that. And this is our unique offering. Then it allows them to, and I think the next piece is to say, and by you doing these things, you contribute to the success of this business, which then allows us to hire other people just like you and give them the same opportunity that I'm giving you right now. And kind of, as much as possible, help them understand their piece in the whole of the success of the business as a whole.
I know this, you know this, but it's a mistake to say, okay, I'm going to hire you to answer the phones, but not give them the big overview of what the business does, why we do what we do, how we help other people, how we make payroll. You know, you need to give people that high level, doesn't matter what they're doing. They might be scrubbing the floors, they might be answering the phone, they might be handling all of your money, but they need to know what the business is, what it does, and what their part is. And I
That
think that's a mistake. It happens a lot.
And that really kind of goes down to the why, knowing your why you exist as a business. And again, what is the mission of the business and the purpose of why you even started it in the first place. If you can have that message from the top, it trickles down. It never trickles up. And so I think that is a critical piece for as a business owner to remind, and it's not even remind, just constantly have that at the forefront. This is why we exist in the first place, because it will trickle down to everyone else. And you lose a little bit as it trickles down, but that's okay. That's just by nature that way. But you can reinforce it on a regular basis, whether it is just in your interactions or if there's an all hands on deck meeting. Our mission here at Sum of All Numbers is to drive entrepreneurs toward financial peace. And every Monday morning, we have all hands on deck. And I've got people that work for me all over the world and through all four of our time zones here in America. And everyone comes on at 9:30 a.m. on Monday mornings. And we started off by stating our mission statement. They hear it from me every week. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I feel like a robot. I feel like it's hard to just say it. But then I realize it is so important. And then the next thing I say is, what evidence have you seen in this past week that we've done what we've set out to do? And nothing is too small. So if you're a business owner and you don't know how to read a balance sheet, there is some lack of peace there if someone throws a balance sheet at you. So sometimes my employees will say, this week, my business owner that I'm working with didn't understand the balance sheet. And we just spent 15 minutes talking about the difference between current assets and fixed assets and what equity is and all those terminologies that for us is really easy because we deal with it every single day. But for this business owner, it was like speaking Greek. It was, and that business owner's eyes just lit up and said, now I don't feel stupid when I talk to my banker. Okay, 15 minutes. And this is something that my employee shared with me. And I said, do you realize that we're achieving our mission by just what you did there in those 15 minutes? It's huge. And thank you for sharing that. So sometimes there's crickets that people don't want to speak up because they're looking for something so enormous to share. And I'm like, no, it comes from every small piece. Just the fact that you emailed the client and said, I just want to let you know that all of your bills are paid. We'll see you next week until the next time we do a bill pay for you. That is achieving our mission of providing and driving our entrepreneurs toward financial peace. There's a peace of mind that someone's got them, someone helped them pay their bills, someone's watching their sales tax, helping read the financial statements, helping them understand the decisions they've made in the past and where they are and now forecasting for the future, all the way up to what I get to do every day of helping them scenario plan or dig into their behaviors, or what I'm going to call the higher level strategic. But again, it goes back to that. Do we all understand why we're in business in the first place? And maybe this kind of comes back to that lady, my best friend's mom, that said, you're in a selfish business. So I even grasp onto it even harder because of that underlying thing that happened to me decades ago.
I have to say, yeah, me being me, I would probably turn around and say, really? You want to chat about that? And that wouldn't go well. So it sounds like you handled it in a much more adult fashion than I would have. But here's the thing, and I think the stories that you're telling, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, we don't know what questions to ask, and we will, it happens to me in web development. People will either say, "Oh, Denise, I didn't know that," because I'll explain things in depth if I have a sense that they have no clue what I'm talking about. And I do try to keep it Homer Simpson simple. I really do. But sometimes, like I have a client right now, bless him, I love him. I have explained the difference between the domain name, which is one portion of having a website, and the hosting, which is a completely different portion of it. You have to have both. He cannot separate them. And I know this. So I'm prepared every time I talk with him to try to kind of cement it for him. The domain name is the name you rented. It's not yours forever. That's your URL. But the hosting, that's where your files are hosted. They have to speak together, but they're separate. He still doesn't get it, but that's okay. I know he doesn't get it, so I don't get, twitchy when he sends me notes. I just don't understand that. I know you don't. Let's go over it again.
Well, one of the things I hear from this is he recognized an area that he doesn't have the understanding and reached out to an expert in that field in order for that knowledge gap and that understanding gap. So as business owners and people that sometimes we just say, okay, I don't know that, I'm going to hire someone there. If we can look at what pieces that we truly don't, it's not like you said, sometimes there are things you just don't know, but where you realize that your strengths are not in that area, one of the best things that you can do is go search for someone that has those strengths that are your weaknesses. And have them become part of your team so that you can really shore up all aspects of your company. This requires a business owner who is humble enough to do that, and to recognize where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are, and then be humble enough to say, I don't know everything. I need someone to fill that space. For us here at Sum of All Numbers, we recognized, honestly, one of the pieces of our top clients is, your business. You know what you do better than I will ever know because you love it and but I know the financial end of it and the business principles. And together I can help you apply these business principles into what you do great. So, that's one of the characteristics that we've identified for our top clients. So I'm going to say for all of you listening today, if you can look at the areas where are your strengths, your weaknesses, take a few assessments that are out there. There's, you see them all the time, whether it's the Enneagrams or the DISC or Colby Myers Briggs and all of those other assessments there that really Strength Finders is a fantastic one, and really stand in that place where you thrive and where nobody can, you really are the top there. And then look at exactly the opposite and say, oh my goodness, I need that person. just a funny side note on that. So my head of operations here, and she is an amazing superstar. And she put together all of our standard operating procedures for some things, and they were pages and pages long, of which I believe in systems there. And she got mad at me because I didn't remember step number 4 or whatever in talking to a client. And she said, I feel like you don't value what I do. And I said, I I don't understand why you don't think I value it. I value it greatly. She's like, well, you didn't remember step number 4 in a 20-step process. And I said, I'm so big picture that I'll forget the little details. Well, see, you don't value it. And I said, no, 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 that's not the case. So we had to come together and realize where her strengths were, and her strengths were in the minute little details, everything. And my strength is big picture. And after a little rough tiffle over all of it, then we came to the place of, do you realize I need you? But vice versa, you need me. And all of a sudden it was, oh my goodness, as a team, we're unstoppable. But it didn't mean that I didn't value. It just means that's not my strength. I honestly, if you give me 20 pages of standard operating procedures to read, I will find 20 things to distract me. I will get so sidetracked. And so, but if you are on a meeting with me for an hour and you're like, I want to go over this with you, and we go by it bullet piece by bullet piece, man, you will have my undivided attention. And recognizing again where my strengths were is like, no, don't make me read something just for the sake of reading it. Let's have some strategy around this to think through it, to shore it up and such. So oftentimes I will remind, oh, this is where I need you. Oh, this is where you need me. And so if you find yourself in your company where you're going butting heads with someone, perhaps it's because you need them and they need you, but you haven't identified where's this friction coming from, and kind of identify it and say, okay, we're going to be great here.
Bullet points, because I read anything. I'll read the back of a cereal box, but don't hand me a YouTube video or tell me to watch a movie. I'm not going to do it. I mean, I picked up my remote control a few weeks ago and had to study it. I just don't turn the TV on. Hang on, my cat's about to get her butt whooped by another cat.
Oh,
sorry.
That's all right. Isn't that funny though? But when we recognize that, then we're not unstoppable. If we can
exactly. But once you sit down, and I love what you said about the bullet points, because I'm a bullet point girl. But once you're having that discussion, and I'm air quoting discussion, you can ask questions about those bullet points and say, oh, okay, I didn't quite get that. Thank you. And then move on to the next one. It's a conversation. Conversations are important.
And Denise, when I hear you say that, and let's just say that you were given like something where there were 20 hours of videos that a client sent to you and said, I need you to help me with this. And you already know that, you're like, oh my goodness. Well, guess what?
Grab my Tums when you said that.
Yes.
I just know the answer is no, I can't do it.
But
I'll find somebody else to do it for me.
Or you can hire someone and say, I need you to watch these and give it to me in a bullet point. And the best thing right now is we have all of this AI that will do it for you and put it in a written form.
That's
and
exactly
then
right.
Now you can thrive. I think this is part of the behavior piece. We use an assessment called AccuMax, and it only measures 4 areas. And it's meant for business owners to help in hiring. That's the purpose of it. It doesn't look at anything else and I appreciate that greatly from AccuMax, in the sense that they're not trying to be we'll tell you everything about everyone, that type of thing. They're like, no, we only measure these 4 things, but you can also then line up what a job it requires out of a person, and then you can map it. Hey, if you're in sales, then you have to obviously like to be talking all day. And if you're wired to where talking all day exhausts you, you're not going to thrive as a salesperson. All right. So this goes back to, for me, I have my employees take it every 6 months. And then when we have our review, then I look at what their job is expecting of them versus their natural wiring. And if the variance is there, then it's going to cause stress in some way. And sometimes it's a positive stress, sometimes it's a negative. Well, I did the assessment on me, and it was the area where it was on detail oriented and following something from step 1 to step 10. I'm very much the person is like, no, if I'm going to read an IKEA instruction, I'm going to start at number 7 and see if I can get away with skipping steps. That's just how I'm wired. And I realized on my own assessment, boy, you're low on this. Why? And it said, you're de-energized. And I thought, so I stepped back and said, what is that required of me? Well, one of it was I had to make, after I'd have a consulting session, I'd have to make notes so that somebody else could see what happened. I hated it. So it's wonderful that we've got opportunities out there. So I found a virtual assistant in the Philippines. I sent her my notes. She typed them up immediately. Within a day, the relief I felt was so huge because I gave away something where I didn't thrive. But I had to identify what it was, and it came back to that assessment. Let me see what it was. One simple part of my job that I gave away made a big difference in just me internally. So I think we can look at that for all of our people and for ourselves, and then not be afraid. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It means that's not where I thrive. Let me be in the space where I thrive, and let somebody else who that's where they thrive, let them do that.
Guys, I mean, I get that. I really do. And I'm like you. I mean, I don't put together IKEA furniture, but anytime I'm putting together a ceiling fan or something, a pet bed or something, invariably I have to go pull the instructions out of the trash because I can do this. And then, uh-oh, what are those extra pieces over there? So been there, done it, and I'll do it again because it's just how I operate. Michelle, I wanted to ask you because, we're running out of time. For those who are listening to us, and I'm sure they're taking a lot of notes, but they might be struggling to connect their personal approach with their financial best practices. What's an actionable tip that you can share to help them, make that bridge, if you will?
The first thing you can do is just like you have that clipboard, whether you do it mentally or you write it down. As you're faced with decisions, then identify what's going on underneath between my ears. And so if it's a matter, and especially when you're feeling not extreme, but joy, when you're experiencing joy or a lack of peace, those two pieces there, and then say, what's going on underneath that? And you can start to put if you're not aware of it yet, or if you are aware of it, then you can start looking at that objectively. All right, what's going on here? And how can I make it better? Whether it is putting guardrails around yourself, or delegating that piece out, or finding someone else to help you work through it. I think all of those, it starts with, though, what's the emotions that you're feeling behind it. And in business, emotions are one of those things where it's like, oh, no, we're not talking about emotions. We're talking about facts. But until it's not a person, there's going to be emotions. So that's just who we are as human beings. There's going to be emotions as part of it, and kind of really pay attention to that. And then you can start to identify how that affects the finances or the decisions that you make in your business, or even the systems and stuff that you put into place.
Take a lot of notes while I'm talking with my podcast guests because I never know what you're going to say that has me go, ooh, I need to go back and listen to that. And I scribbled a note and I was writing about you, what I'm hearing from you and what I think. And I wrote, she's a critical thinker married to intense curiosity.
That definitely is, I am very evidence driven, and I'm a deep diver. And so that critical thinking comes into like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense yet here. And so that's where the curiosity comes in of, until that just resonates, not with me personally, but with the evidence part of it, that I'm going to keep diving in, diving in, diving in. Now, knowing that about myself, do you know where the weakness is? I don't make decisions as fast as some people
Yeah.
need me to.
I forget. I do the same thing. I think we're twins. I I really do in so many ways, but I will have these fantastic ideas. I mean, they're just so good, but then I critical think myself to death. And
So,
I forget about the curiosity part of it. I go, let me think about this. I have to remind myself frequently, Denise, take action. Do it now. Take action.
and that comes from a place of awareness. And like you, I am aware of that for myself. And I will be in my leadership meetings with my team. And when you're in charge, they expect the person in charge to make the decision. And as much as in a leadership team, you want everyone making decisions. I'm sorry, but it really is the person at the top, the person who, if the business fails, they're the ones holding all the cards, you know? And so I have to tell myself, make a decision. You have to have an opinion. The way I phrase it in my mind is, you have to have an opinion. So figure out what your opinion is and say it. The best part for me is later on, if I recognize that my opinion was wrong, I have no problem saying it. So that is how I've gotten away from not making decisions, is to say, this is what I think needs to happen right now. If we find that it's not correct, then we'll adjust it. But we're going forward right now because this is where we need to be. And then it empowers everyone to move forward. Um, when you recognize that about yourself, then you can mediate it and fill in how you can better yourself.
And I have learned, my brain is like a 48 lane highway. It's nuts in there. I have taught myself over time, if I've got something that's really important and I need it to stick in my head, and I live alone, so I can talk out loud to the ceiling fan. I do it a lot. I will say it out loud because that cements it in my head. You can only say one thing at a time as a rule, unless you're just really gifted. But you can say and think one thing at a time. But if you're just thinking it, you're just stepping all over your own toes. So that helps me. I'll say, okay, hang on. And I'll stand up. I may do my Wonder Woman pose. I may go outside and get under a pecan tree and dig my toes in the grass, but I'm out there talking whatever it is that's got me. What do I need to do? What's going on here? I'll say it out loud and then I'll get quiet. And I always have an answer after that.
That is so interesting. I'm going to have to try that. I have not done that before, but I can see a lot of wisdom in that.
I'll do it in the shower. That's where I get my God winks, to be honest, because
Mhm.
nothing's bothering me. No, the phone's not ringing. The cat's not trying to say, feed me. You just ate. We're having arguments. But I've learned, you think I'm a total lunatic, but when I get in the shower and I take my shower is hot enough to steam cabbage. So it's hot and steamy in there when I come out. But I take bathtub crayons in there because that's when downloads happen for me. I'm like, oh, but once
Yeah.
I'm dry and I'm back across the house, I've forgotten much of it.
You're on that 48
Yes,
lane highway
that's it.
again.
Right,
Mhm.
right. So I'll be speaking out loud. I may be talking to my God, my spirit, I may be talking to myself. I don't know who I'm talking to, but I will get downloads and they're great. So I write them all over the bathroom stall.
Oh, that's amazing.
Try it. It
Yes,
works.
I
Take
know.
wait for the steam to go away and then go take a picture of it. Clean your bathroom, your shower walls, and you
Yeah.
haven't lost a thing. It works.
I've heard of people that have like notepads next to their beds at night, that's their place where the
Yep.
ideas come as they're falling asleep or even in the middle of the night or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. And then they
318.
know, yeah, wake up and just write it down and then go back to sleep or whatever
I
it is.
do.
Yeah,
I
that's
do.
that's great.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your really inspiring journey and your insights and your wisdom with us today. But before we close, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? And where can people connect with you?
I would just like to double down and say to all of you that are out there feeling like you are alone, that you aren't alone in that, especially in running your business, that it's a very isolating place to have all of those pressures there. But there are many of us that are out here cheering you on and are here to say you're not alone. So if you are finding yourself in that place, then reach out to someone that you trust and just say, all right, and an expert in that field to just say, help me move this forward so that I don't feel so alone in the burdens of running a business. And if it happens to be us, we're here at Sum of All Numbers. That's SUM, Sum of All Numbers. And that's where you can find me.
Listen, to our audience, in today's conversation, we had the pleasure of speaking with Michelle Scribner. She is the CEO of Sum of All Numbers. And Michelle, it's an amazing conversation. She shared valuable insights into the critical connection between entrepreneurs' unique behaviors and their financial outcomes rather. And we discussed how each business owner brings their own individuality to the table, which significantly influences. I can't talk. Can I give this to you and you can read it for me?
Of course.
Okay, good. It significantly influences their approach to financial management. And while sound business principles remain consistent across the board, she emphasized the importance of applying one's unique behaviors, and we need to identify those to these principles to truly drive business success. And throughout the episode, Michelle provided practical examples and strategies that entrepreneurs can implement to enhance their financial decision making. And she highlighted how understanding and embracing personal behaviors, I would have never thought of this. It's so obvious now that she said it, though. Understanding and embracing personal behaviors can lead to better financial outcomes, and that will help you propel your business forward. I'm going to go take a little break after this. So I think I'm going to need one. So if you found this conversation insightful, and I know you did because I did, I encourage you to connect with Michelle and then leave a review on Apple Podcast. And why? Because your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue sharing valuable content. So thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Michelle, thank you so much.
Oh, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Get your voice heard. If you would like to launch your own far-reaching podcast, contact Denise Griffiths at yourofficeontheweb.com and go to the podcast tab.